Now, you were in the Special Forces at 48. You were going out
Mhm.
onto tours and missions. You were, well, I don't like the phrase hanging with the young guys, but your performance was exemplary. You know, you were just competing, you were training, you were doing everything that they could possibly do. What were you noticing about other candidates who were having to drop out? How was their performance slipping at that
Mhm.
point? Was that the
Mhm.
inspiration when you noticed people having to retire early for writing the book?
Mhm. Yeah. So, and although I was certainly an outlier because I was doing that, as you said, at age 48, and at the time as a physician, because I was going out in operations as a physician, not as an operator. But even those who were I would consider my peers in the operator community who stayed on teams and stayed in that capacity while I went off and got my education. A lot of us during the global war on terror were doing that at a progressed age, compared to decades past. It used to be in the 80s and 90s when you got to your 20-year mark, you would, as soon as you got there, you would absolutely retire because there wasn't a war on, there wasn't something actively engaging you. You didn't have an upcoming deployment to look forward to. So
Mhm.
guys were, I don't want to use the phrase "take the money and run," but they were looking for that next challenge, and they were doing it, either as a contractor, as an instructor somewhere, setting up their own business. But with GWOT, actively engaged in a war, and this is something that a lot of the civilian populace probably doesn't appreciate, is retention in the military. In other words, the number of people that were re-enlisting and doing more years. The average years of service in the 80s and 90s for most people would do a 4-year enlistment and get out. And those of us that did a career were mostly the outliers. But during the global war on terror, people were re-enlisting. People were staying in past those 20 years. People were tearing up retirement paper, tearing up separation papers, so that they could stay engaged because we had a purpose, we had a mission, and it kept people active. But to answer your question, I know that in kind of a roundabout way, the big thing that I noticed, those who had the most trouble as they got older were those who didn't adjust to the fact that our bodies don't recover at the same pace. Number one, and that you have to really, as it becomes an old man's game, to coin a phrase, it has to become a game of wisdom. You have to look for the smart way to do it as opposed to the hard way to do it. Whereas a younger guy, I went through special forces selection in my 20s, and as I was able to just basically put my head down, bite a hole in my tongue, and do it, even though I was not in the best shape at the time, because I had a body that was resilient enough that it could spring back and recover quickly enough that I could go on to the next training evolution. And to do that in my late 40s was really difficult. And I did within JSOC, people that would come and try out for the unit, people that were maybe not my age, but a little bit older than, say, the average, would struggle with that quite a bit. And that a lot of times would separate them from whether or not they were going to have the ability to do the job or not when it mattered.
So, do you think a big problem we face is that the cultural norms are once you get to your twilight years, as they call them, 40s, 50s, you're meant to start getting fatter. You're meant to start enjoying life and sitting with a cigar and, like having the
Mm-hmm.
whiskeys. And is it that we're taught that, oh, that's it. You can't get fit again. We're taught to be fat and lazy. It's acceptable. Or is it
Mm-hmm.
more a culture of fast foods? We haven't got challenges in our lives.
Mm-hmm.
What would you say? Is it that the initial mindset problem that we need to fix, that we can maintain our bodies through this level? Or is it something more with we haven't got challenges, the rites of passage that we used to have in previous generations, too much
Mm-hmm.
fast food, we're sitting all day. Where would you say the problem initially stems from, of why we can't keep our performance up as we enter into the old further generations?
I think the answer is both of those things. I think we do tend to live a life, even those in the military who you would think have a little bit more of an eye on their health, um, don't necessarily eat the things that they should be eating, especially at a young age. I treated my digestive system like a landfill when I was in my 20s because I could
Mm-hmm.
literally just get away with eating anything. And it's if I wanted to eat something, I'd eat something. And to me, I just went and did this amazing workout, and I would go directly and just fill my body with garbage because I didn't have a good relationship with food. And I think a lot of us don't in modern society. We've getting food has become easy. I talk about in the book how portion sizes have grown exponentially, how fat content, sugar content, processed carbohydrate content, so carbohydrates with a high glycemic index, have gone up exponentially. If you look at a plate of food today, not only the size of the portions, but how calorically dense it is, and in not necessarily good calories. It's just gone up quite a bit, and you can attribute that to GMOs or preparation, or the fact that we're getting stuff handed through our car window or in a can or from the freezer section or in a box. So all of those things are issues for our longevity as we age. And then when we get to that age, it's exactly what you were talking about. We get to that point, and I talk about this as well in the book, that we start to tell ourselves, I don't have anything to prove any longer. When I was in my 20s and 30s, I had something to prove. Now I'm the old guy who sits in the corner, and like you said, with my whiskey and my cigar, and the youngsters come over to me and I dispense wisdom to them. The idea that I can be in the gym or out on a mission, or or stacking on the ramp at 16,000 feet to jump into the abyss with them at that age seems alien. It just doesn't seem right. But when you reflect on the fact that if you go back thousands of years and you look at King Leonidas at age 60, being in the phalanx at age 60 on the field of battle in Thermopylae, it's certainly possible. And what one human being can do, another human being can certainly do. And it's just a matter of having a good relationship with fitness, with preparedness, with mentally what you can do, putting the right fuel in your body to do so.